Hey everyone, so today we're gonna do this quick reaction video. This is a tweet I found. This is from this lady over here. She's name is Abir Khatib, and she posted this video. She said former U.S. intelligence Josie Guilebau. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. On how the U.S. military programmed them to see Arabs and Muslims as terrorists. Fucking outrageous. And so I went to trying to look for who is this woman over here, and all I could find, she didn't have like a Wikipedia page or all that, but she was a 17 years army veteran, mother, etc. And she's talking about the Palestinian conflict, and so that's pretty much her page. And I downloaded the video. I sped it up a little bit. I watched a short clip of it. So this is going to be, just I wanted to watch it before, but let's just do it together. And I sped it up a little bit because it's a 23-minute video. And so let's play it.
During training, how the military programs us as young teenagers to have such a bias and a disdain for people in the Middle East. For example, during training, our simulations, our urban operations, everything that we're doing is focused on people in the Middle East that wear traditional clothing, speak the Arab language. Oftentimes there are speakers with the Arab language playing in these simulations, and even targeting, our targets are of people who are male Arabs in the traditional clothing.
Damn. So me personally, I wanted to say that in the beginning. I have like a very strong opinion about especially about soldiers and armies. I understand like using that sector, for defensive and all that. But when it comes to offensive, and especially for American, um, it's like my opinion about it. It's I don't even think it's appropriate if I say it's on YouTube or social media, because it's just like uh that colonial mindset. And as you can see in the training, they are using the whatever it is, like if somebody wearing a traditional clothing, and I actually believe these propaganda, this social engineering is not just the military. I believe also the general public is also affected by that. Now let's continue. I'm talking too much. We're probably not going to finish the
And
video.
this is all what I'm recognizing is to program us to be able to deploy to the Middle East and be truly convinced that the people that we're seeing in these areas are terrorists or are the enemy, if you will, because now we're trained to believe this. And coming.
Now I don't understand this idea of terrorist, right? It's strange to me. Like, how are you terrorizing people and then calling them terrorists, just like you did with the Native Americans, where you hunted them, you destroyed their culture, their language, their tradition, you trying to erase them from history, and then you called them savages? Like, it's weird. Like, it's the same pattern. Like, once you crack the code, these motherfuckers like have never civilized. And I said it many times, and I will say it again. They actually never civilized, because you cannot show me a timeline where there's an actual evolution. It's the same pattern. Even before you came to America, you were doing the same thing. In Europe, the Vikings were doing the same thing. They would just invade the entire village and destroy everything. And people like right now, they're like proud of this shit. They're making documentaries about it and movies like, yeah, this is great. We're proud of it. And that's why I said, you can show me where is the timeline of the evolution of the so-called white people.
Into the military at 18 years old, not really knowing anything about the Middle East, everything that I'm being told.
Well, of course, motherfucker, like half of you don't even have a passport. That's why you don't know anything.
By my government and this institution, I'm trusting, because the military in America is held to such a high standard. You are almost put on a pedestal once you join, and so I really didn't have any reason not to trust these institutions. But after about 8 or 9 years as a combat medic, I got a college degree and became an intelligence officer in 2013. And from here, I worked for several agencies, DIA, ODNI, and I was at NSA for almost 5 years. And there were several assignments that I had that involved the Middle East. The first being in 2017, where I did a habeas corpus writ contract for the detainees in Guantanamo Bay. And this was the first time that I really had experienced what my government was capable of doing when it came to how they treated detainees and human beings, really. It was my first experience viewing the inhumane treatment that my government was capable of.
And while you were in the military, and this was sort of, if this is the right word, normalized,
Yes.
what were you perceiving the outside world where there was demonstrations against the invasions of Middle Eastern countries? How were you seeing that at that time?
Well, honestly, during the invasion of Iraq and then, of course, Afghanistan, it was all of these protests were so censored, especially being in the military. I didn't even know that there was such a large dissent towards invading Iraq until most recently becoming an activist because
Yes, but that's the same thing doing right now. It's like there's some people who are completely clueless when it comes to what's happening in Palestine. Right? They're just living a bubble. And this is why I said in the beginning, it's not just the military that is affected, it's also the general public. I said it on my Twitter, like the Westerners are also victims because you cannot explain to me how the same people that are going to rape, mass murder, genocide, pillage, kill, steal resources, right? They're gonna do it outside, but somehow in their country they're gonna act civilized. No, they're gonna treat you the same way. They're just using different tactic, and that's understandable. But like they're doing the same thing. They started, detaining American citizen for protesting right now. I mean, it started with the green card. It started with the student visa. Then it went to the green card with permanent residence. Then now they're arresting American citizens. And I said it. I made a whole video about it, about this fascism that is going on.
Because of the genocide in Palestine, I've met people who protested during this time as well, and veteran organizations who were created during this time, actually. But to be honest with you, had no idea that anyone in America was dissenting towards our invasion of Iraq.
So is there an effort on the part of the military to keep you insulated from what's happening in the public realm?
Right. I think there's not only an effort within the military and our government institutions, but it's an effort by the media, by our executive branch legislation.
That's what I said. I promise you, I didn't see the video. I just start to, once you start to see the pattern, this is something like, I mean, that society doesn't allow you to have critical thinking. But when you think critically about like a certain subject, you can start to see the patterns. You can actually look to it. You need to learn how to identify the problem, the source of the problem. And when you do that, I mean, it's not simple. It's very complicated because it requires you to think, and thinking is hard. It requires cognitive effort. That's not something that you do. What you do, when I say you, I mean the vast majority of the American public, but in the West in general. Y'all just repeating talking points. Y'all just heard something from somewhere, from someone somewhere, right? And then that you're just regurgitating those talking points. Like those ideas were not harvested in your mind. And she's just talking about like how the media is also part of it.
Legislative branch, I mean, even local state governments. I think every institution at this point has a level of corruption that keeps it censored to the truth and reality of what's actually happening.
Yes.
Looking back, do you feel that during your time in the military, the military itself was mostly invested in maintaining American dominance, perhaps informed by a racist or even colonial outlook, rather than protecting America itself?
Yeah, I think there are a few factors that I consider when thinking about our invasion of the Middle East, more specifically. And of course, there's Israel. Learning about how much Israel was involved in convincing our our legislative branch, if you will, to go.
No, I just made a video about this idea of like Israel is convincing America to commit crimes. This is bullshit. I made an entire video about it. This is not true. Nobody is convincing nobody. Those are complicit. Even if you are gonna go along with the idea that those are two separate entities, they're complicit. And if they're not, if there's the same group of people, which is what I believe, and I can show you the evidence of why this is the same group of people, then it's pretty much you come to the same conclusion.
Go to Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction really shocked me. I don't think that most Americans understand how much influence Israel had over our American government.
No, she's also part of that because they refuse to basically admit that I made an entire video. You can go look it up. It's on my channel. I don't want to repeat, the same thing. I'll just say it on the, the video.
Invade Iraq. He came and testified in our Congress. Benjamin Netanyahu came and testified in our Congress, saying that he was 100% sure that there was weapons.
Yeah, but just because he said it doesn't mean like it put like it hypnotized the American politician and Congress and all that. Okay, one man cannot change the goddamn fucking. It's bullshit. Like it's frustrating because everybody believes that, and I understand that she don't want to believe. She don't want to like be part of that criminal organization. That's why maybe that's the defensiveness, or I don't know what psychological mental gymnastic they do. I don't know. Like I can't explain it.
Of mass destruction inside of Iraq, which we all know now that was a complete lie. And so there's this factor that I'm witnessing, that as we maneuver inside of the Middle East, I'm noticing that a lot of it has to do with the fact that Israel is the influencer over this. And then there's also the military-industrial complex, which is something that I'm learning more about. I work for Eisenhower Media Network, and
wow. So you basically had 17. How many years you had? 17 years in the army. And just not right now, you start to learn about the military-industrial complex. Wow.
President Eisenhower was someone who brought this to the forefront and said, if we continue down this path, our economic stability will be placed on the military-industrial complex. And we're witnessing this right now. And Representative Thomas Massie just recently made a statement about how we're pulling out of the war in Eastern Europe, but now starting to invest in a greater war in the Middle East again. And this is because there's an expectation of how much investment and spending we will have in America on weapons, on manufacturing weapons, on selling weapons, on using weapons, because this has become such a life cycle, implanted as a life cycle of our economy, that without this now, there would be an economic devastation. And so I think there are two factors in play here: imperialism, of course, a land grab by Israel in the Middle East. Anytime there's stability.
Okay, still blaming Israel. And as far as the money, it's like trillions of dollars. And this is the greedy capitalist and all that. They want you to be mad at the immigrants, but you're not mad at like people who made like hundreds of billions of dollars and killed millions of innocent people. That's to you, that's like whatever, right? And it's like, wow, no, there's like Venezuelans are the problem, or like Mexicans. Like, motherfucker, like, y'all just fucking stupid sometimes.
With a country in the Middle East that does not recognize Israel, then Israel...
Because the scale, I understand, maybe there's immigration, maybe that's a problem. But like the scale, like, this is like the epitome of like false equivalence, It's not the same issue.
Tend to implement some sort of influence to destabilize the country, crash it economically, bring it back into impoverished conditions so that they don't have any influence. And so I think the factors here that I'm recognizing is there's twofold at play: the Israeli influence in the Middle East, and then also our military-industrial complex.
Perhaps you can link what your awakening was in terms of the American military not being what it says that it is, and your entering in earnest pro-Palestinian activism that you do so well today.
Yes. I come from a Republican background. In 2016, I was a supporter of Trump. My entire family was a supporter of Trump, over Hillary Clinton, of course. And as a Republican, one of the pillars that people do support and why they vote Republican is because of the defense budget. And so for my entire life, I always believed that it was necessary to have this defense budget, and this is why I always voted towards the right side of the aisle.
I mean, how can you think that? Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, how can you think that? Like, defense, like what kind of defense? I mean, you go invade other country and talking about defense, like.
Notice now that the reason we have this defense budget is not because we need to actually defend our borders. It's for us to be able to wage wars in other.
Well, how did you not know that? As a 17 years Army veteran, and you just realize that? This is shocking, and disturbing.
Countries. And so this level of awakening tied back into my 17 years in the military and trying to recognize what I participated in, what my colleagues participated in, what people that I consider family and friends participated in, who deployed to Iraq, who deployed to Afghanistan. And then I look at this and this awakening of how much my entire life has just been a lie. We don't need this defense budget to defend our country. We need this defense budget to fund the military-industrial complex and to in other countries. And so October 7th really was that moment of awakening where I was watching the footage coming out of Gaza. I'm following these news media outlets from other countries at this point. And so I'm watching the real footage coming out and not the Western media footage. Fox News, CNN, even MSNBC, all of these news organizations have been censoring the truth. But I'm watching Al Jazeera, WEON, Hinduism Times. I'm watching all this footage coming out of Gaza, and I immediately knew that this was not self-defense. This was not a military operation. I know that Israel has the best weapon systems. They have the ability to use precision guiding weapons. They can do urban operations. This is what we are trained to do in the military, where you go in with a team, take out a commander or a military operative, and then move out. None of this was happening. All I could see was bombs dropping absolutely everywhere on children, women, elderly, on hospitals. It was.
And you still have people right now who are completely clueless about this fact. Like, they still believe like there's like, oh, we're killing the bad guys. right? And no matter how much evidence, no matter how much pictures and videos and testimonies and all that, it just like it's completely shocking, you know. And I don't know like what kind of human you are. Like if you see the evidence with your own eyes and you're trying to come up with some explanation for why is it happening, like I don't know what kind of human being you are.
Completely indiscriminate. And so by October 24th, I will never forget this day. I recognized that Israel was committing a genocide, and I also recognized that most of my life had been a lie.
I mean, how have people who know you
Well,
from the military or
glad
within the
you
government
do that.
responded to your
You
activism,
did that.
especially because it's been so outspoken, to your credit?
Yeah, I've had I've had different responses from both my family, former colleagues, current colleagues. There's one side where I think people are so hesitant to accept the truth because of the amount of guilt, shame, and processing that has to take place.
Exactly. Like sometimes I struggle to form like coherent sentences and all that, but because of like my limited kind of like a vocabulary and all that. But as the same thing, it's the guilt. You don't want to feel like responsible for committing those crimes, those atrocities. You don't want to feel responsible for it. So there's a lot of shame, and I understand like your position if you're hesitant about accepting what she said. Well, I'm just repeating her words, but like it's a very good, it's a very appropriate use of words.
You imagine a soldier who's deployed to Iraq 2, maybe even 3 times, who's participated in war crimes, realistically is what happened. And now they have to internalize and
Yes,
accept.
I mean, remember, this is how also they program. They got like these slogans like "Thank you for your service" and all that. Like motherfucker, you just went destroyed entire city blocks, and then when they come to your country, they come back to their home country. You're like, thank you, like this is why I say there's no critical thinking in the West. It's like they're completely separated from reality.
That what they did was to innocent people. I think this is the hesitation that I get when it comes to speaking to former colleagues in the military, where they're not, psychologically prepared to accept that what they participated in were war crimes. And
They're not psychologically prepared. You know why? Because you since your childhood, you grow up in this fog of lies and deceit and propaganda 24/7. So it's very hard, you know. Like it's like I can put myself in that position, but like I understand, you know, why is it
and
happening?
on behalf of the oligarchy, on behalf of the elites, on behalf of Israel. That's why we have 22
Well, no, ma'am. That's not Israel. Israel has nothing to do with it. It's a fictional concept, first of all.
veteran suicides a day in America. And I anticipate that number will rise now that so many veterans are actually waking up to the truth. But I think that
And yes, and then you think this is an important point. You think you can commit crimes and kill innocent civilians, right, and do all this damage and get away with it. Well, I hate to disappoint you, but you're not gonna get away with it. Not because somebody's gonna punish you, because you can get away with getting being held responsible in terms of like the legal system and all that. But like your mind is not gonna leave you alone, and that's why she mentioned that self end and all that.
I continue conversations with these people. I don't want to push the issue so far to where they do end up, thinking about having suicidal ideations or self-harm. But I do continue having conversations with these people and also offering support because I'm internalizing what I participated in as well.
And that's the price you pay. You didn't even give it. You didn't get anything from it. You did all these atrocities and all that. I started to stutter because I've been talking too much, but you know what I'm saying. Like you're not gonna get away with it. And that's the point. You're gonna live with that guilt and shame and all that.
Well, I mobilized for Operation Enduring Freedom, and so there were missions that I participated in as well that I look back on and think, I think that those people may have been innocent. But we were told that they were guilty of participating in some terrorist organization. But I'm being accused of the same thing. So now I look back and think, were they actually guilty of something, or were they just dissenting against Israel, and so therefore were categorized as a terrorist? And then there's the other side of the aisle that have come to this awakening as well as I have, and are wondering, what is our country doing? On an internet, anyone that has this ability
Okay,
to
I'm not gonna finish that. Like your country is run by psychopath, and they are uncivilized, and you might not accept it, but that's fine. Like I told you, you cannot show me where's that timeline. They've been doing the same thing their entire life. So anyway, that's my take on it. I don't want to finish the video. I can put the link in the description if you want to watch the whole thing, but like, share, subscribe, and see you next time.